Okay, so I'd like to welcome you all here this evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ashling O'Brien and I'm a committee member of Atheist Ireland. I'm also Atheist Ireland's representative on the steering group of the coalition to repeal the 8th Amendment. We're now only 22 days away from a vote on the 8th Amendment of the Constitution, and it's taken us 35 years to reach this point. I was 8 years old when the 8th was passed. That means I've spent pretty much my whole reproductive life living under the 8th Amendment, but I never thought that I had been directly affected by the 8th. In March 2007, I was honoured to be given the opportunity to speak at the Citizens' Assembly, but to be honest, I felt a bit of a fraud. There had been a bit of a backlash on Twitter when Atheist Ireland were asked to speak. Some felt that as we were a group that didn't campaign solely on the 8th, we should not have been asked when groups such as terminations for medical reasons had been passed over. By the way, TFM were nothing but supportive to us during this time. We were presenting in a group along with the Catholic Church and the Church of Ireland. If we hadn't spoken, they would have gone unopposed, as so often happened in Ireland's history. Anyway, the only reason I'm mentioning this is because during this time, a tweet was sent. A pro-choice man tweeted something along the lines of, "I hope the speaker from Atheist Ireland has been pregnant or has had an abortion." And I was really pissed off about this because, well, for one, it's none of his business. And for two, I had never been pregnant or had an abortion, so I felt like a fraud. I felt I'd never been directly affected by the 8th. But then I thought a little bit more about this. I knew from a very young age that I never wanted children. And people used to say to me, "Well, you'll feel different when you get older or when you meet the right man." But that it never changed. I never felt that maternal drive. And some in society would judge me for that, and they'd call me selfish. But I always knew that the thought of being pregnant and being forced to carry a pregnancy and give birth against my will filled me with terror. I was lucky. I never got pregnant. But that's exactly what it was, luck. I know, without a shadow of a doubt, that I could never have brought a child into the world that I didn't know for certain that I could love, nurture, and provide for. And I never had very much money. During my 20s, I did factory work and other types of low-paid work. During my 30s, I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to study as a mature student, and I worked part-time to put myself through college. So money was always tight. I didn't know about women on web or women helping women. I didn't know about abortion pills. I didn't know about the abortion support network. I just knew that I couldn't take the risk of getting pregnant because I knew I didn't want children. And I knew I'd struggle to get the finances together if I ever needed to travel for an abortion. So I think some part of me just decided to avoid relationships altogether. This was in part because I never wanted to fall in love, only to find out that he wanted kids and I didn't, because there's no winners in that situation. But also because it was easier, because that way I never had to worry about getting pregnant. Now, I'm not saying I was celibate, but that fear always hung over me. And now I can't help but wonder, it might have been different. If I'd have known that I'd had options and I had choices, maybe I'd been more open to the possibility of relationships. But I'll never know. But the question is always there. I only tell this story to show that every woman, whatever her choices may have been, was in some way affected by the 8th. But my story is incomparable to the horrors and the torture that the 8th has inflicted on some women. I'm really happy this evening to welcome our wonderful speakers, and it's a real pleasure for me to introduce them to you. First to speak is Treasa McVeigh. Treasa grew up in Ballymun, Glasnevin. She's one of the original members of Dublin Northwest Repeal, now Dublin Northwest Together for Yes. Last year, though not a qualified solicitor or qualified in law, because we don't do fake lawyers here, she did investigate the history of law of the 8th Amendment of the Constitution in order to give an introduction to it at Dublin Northwest's inaugural meeting, and she's very kindly said she'd provide us with an overview of the 8th, just to remind us how we all got into this mad, crazy situation in the first place. Next to Treasa is Dr. Mark Murphy. Mark is a GP in County Dublin, a lecturer in general practice and researcher. He has published research on abortion in Ireland and is actively involved in Doctors for Choice for over 6 years. Mark is also a medical spokesperson for the Together for Yes campaign, and he's also, we're very happy to say, a member of Atheist Ireland. Next to Mark is Dr. Krysia Lynch. Krysia is the chair of the Association for Improvements in the Maternity Services, or AIMSI Ireland. She has been involved in representing the consumer experience of maternity care since 2002. In 2015, she was the only Consumer Association representative on the National Maternity Strategy Steering Committee, and in 2016 represented the consumer's view on the HICWA standards for better, safer maternity care expert panel. In 2017, along with her colleague Rita Kearns, she was asked to give specialist advice to the Oireachtas Joint Committee on the implementation of the National Maternity Strategy for Ireland. She represents service users on various national committees, as well as many local hospital and regional committees. She's a frequent speaker at midwifery conferences and parenting conferences, and is often in the spoken and written media discussing maternity care in Ireland. She's the co-author of many AIMSI Ireland publications and blogs, and she's the most experienced doula and has observed firsthand. She's Ireland's most experienced doula and has observed firsthand many of the issues that pregnant people in Ireland have to navigate. She's a monthly podcast on sparking change in women's health and is an active campaigner for birth rights and authors several blogs, including the AIMSI Ireland blog. Cliona's just arrived. The Cliona Saidléar? Close enough. Cliona is the Executive Director of the Rape Crisis Network Ireland. Her role includes national policy initiatives across a range of government departments and interagency fora to improve the responses to survivors and to work towards the prevention of sexual violence. A key focus of Cliona's work since 2004, when she first joined the RCNI as Policy and Communications Director, has been on prevention. Cliona drafted the Irish National Guidelines on awareness raising, led on rethinking approaches to education and awareness work within the sector, engaged in strategic partnerships to integrate sexual violence into sexual health strategies and initiatives across government, non-government and student body structures, has commissioned research and partners with academia to develop and support best practice and analysis. Cliona has spoken at many conferences and seminars, as well as regularly acting as a spokesperson. She also worked for over 10 years in the disability sector. And last but not least is Bernadette Grogan. Bernadette is the co-convener of Dublin Northwest Together for Yes and volunteer with partnerships and outreach group with the Abortion Rights Campaign. She helped develop and deliver the national camping training that has been rolled out in various forms since January of this year. She is a director of elections for her boss and a nameless politician during the general election, the 2016 campaign, and is now a canvas lead for the Finglas area in Dublin Northwest. She's knocked on a lot of doors and helped the logistic planning of the Grand campaign. Bernadette will be giving us tips and advice on canvassing and how to have the conversations around why we need to repeal the 8th Amendment. And before I start, I want to welcome you all here. If you're a yes voter, we want to give you the opportunity to ask any questions you have so you can feel comfortable going out canvassing and having conversations about the 8th. If you're still undecided, I hope this evening will help you to see why we need to repeal the 8th and bring you closer to a yes vote. If you're a no voter, you are very welcome, and I hope you've come in the spirit of dialogue and you will listen with an open mind. We'll have plenty of time for Q&A. If anyone doesn't feel comfortable speaking out in the crowd, there are some cards and pens on the end of the rows. Please write down your questions and we can take them that way. And I'll explain a little bit then about our fundraising efforts after we've heard from our speakers. Thank you.